Hey, I'm Sean Blevins, and this is why 1986's April Fool's Day is the best thing about April Fool's Day. Unless you're 10 years old, one of the lamest holidays has to be April Fool's Day. And it's only been compounded by the dawn of the internet, where you may as well stay offline altogether on April 1st. So at a distance, it would seem like the 1986 holiday-themed slasher April Fool's Day is just another in a long line of horror films that rode the slasher wave during the 80s. However, there's more than one reason this slasher stands out as a highlight, including a great cast, but most of all, it's the script, written by Danilo Bach, who prior to the release of April Fool's Day, was nominated for an Academy Award for his Beverly Hills Cop screenplay. April Fool's Day is about a group of college students heading to their friend Muffy's island mansion during spring break. As we're introduced to Muffy, played by Deborah Foreman, during the opening of the film, we get an unsurprising and somewhat stereotypical flashback sequence of a seemingly traumatizing childhood event that of course plays a role in the film.
Hi, my name is Mary O'Toole O'Reilly O'Shea. And
April Fool's Day also stars Biff himself, Tom Wilson, who was in Back to the Future that had hit theaters the summer before. Another highlight to the cast is seeing Friday the 13th Part 2's Amy Steele return to her slasher roots. The cast does a great job playing off each other, and there also seems to be a lot of genuine moments of shared laughter that's actually a bit infectious. A rare feat for any film. The cast performances are a cut above what most have come to expect out of an 80s slasher. Director Fred Walton, who had previously directed 1979's When a Stranger Calls, not only does a great job at taking advantage of his ensemble of actors, but he also expertly directs a few great suspense scenes, which are way more effective than most attempts of terror that other gore-filled horror films from the 80s ever achieve. And speaking of gore, many of the kills actually happen off-screen, but you never feel like you're being cheated. Walton is very aware of what is and what isn't important to show on screen. During the first few scenes of April Fool's Day, it's apparent that this production comes from a group of creatives that weren't satisfied in just making a quick buck or rehashing the typical slasher formula without any effort being put into story or characters. Although there's a traditional setup that includes a group of young adults being stuck in a location, getting picked off one by one, it's all handled in a way that makes you actually enjoy being with them. And in turn, you're actually sad to see some of them get picked off. Most of the complaints I had about the film while watching it completely evaporated once I made it to the end. April Fool's Day also expertly uses Three Dog Night's Mama Told Me Not to Come to a very satisfying effect. Mama told me not to come. I get really annoyed at how lazy some slasher films are, and April Fool's Day is anything but. Okay, so for those of you who haven't seen April Fool's Day, I'd recommend checking it out now and returning when you have. Don't spoil this gem for yourself by listening past this point, as it's one of the most underrated slashers of the 80s. Alright, so if you have seen the film, then you'll know a few things I've said so far maybe don't quite line up. And the revelation of the film is its best quality. In some ways, it's a traditional holiday-centric slasher, and in other ways, it elevates itself beyond that. So is it really a slasher then? It follows many of the tropes and formulas of the subgenre, but that's actually the point. It's somewhat of a love letter to slashers while damning them at the same time. It's self-aware and recognizes that by 1986, slashers had began to become too formulaic, and it uses this to manipulate the audience to its advantage. The fact that Amy Steele was not only casted, but also becomes the final girl, only helped it become more directly connected with the lineage of slasher films before it. After the big reveal happens, not everything about Muffy's plan makes complete sense if you think about it. But the joke of April Fool's Day is not only played on the characters, but more importantly the audience. So some leaps in logic actually work in this case. It's an ending that shouldn't work, but somehow does. This may turn off plenty of slasher fans that can't get enough of just seeing some fake gore and elaborate kills. But even the fact that the gore effects in this film don't look completely believable work in its favor when it's revealed that they're just that, effects. While some holiday-set horror films use the holiday angle as a crutch or gimmick, 1986's April Fool's Day plays tribute to one of the worst holidays and ends up becoming one of the best and most memorable American slashers of all time.